Hi, Richard from Brewing. Hopefully you've seen a bit of me by now. T500, we're going to discuss T500 today. I've given this a lot of thought before we actually started on this one, and I was going to run the machine, but the background noise and all the other problems just doesn't really justify it, and I think we can demo this really well by having it actually not in a working environment, but me running through all the various things about it. So hence the reason why I'm not actually going to run it at this stage. We've talked about the air still. I'm not going to even discuss that. This is pure T500 today. Let's look at the T500. We've had several versions of the T500 come out from Still Spirits, but this is the very latest version, and we are, as we speak, at the beginning of August 2016. So after that there might be other little changes, but as of 2016 August we are absolutely bang up to date. T500, let's break it down. Firstly, we've got the boiler, which is this part here. The boiler has a tap at the front, which obviously is great for releasing all the goodness that's inside there and being able to get rid of the waste. Now the tap, when we're using it, should always be positioned over a sink so that we've got the emergency situation if necessary. We've also got inside here, we've got a element which is submerged obviously under the stainless steel base, and we have finally an on-off switch on the actual machine so that we can switch on and off. The plug obviously goes into the mains, but as I said, we've got the on-off switch as well, so that again is a change that came through earlier this year. The boiler, the capacity is 25 litres. Our 25 litres, we have an indentation on the inside which we can zoom in on and actually show you, but here on the outside you can see it as well, and this is the fill line, so we're looking at a 25 litre fill capacity. We don't want to be going over the 25 litres. Obviously we can do less than 25 litres, that is not a problem, but we don't want to be doing more than 25 in one go. If we look at the column that comes with the T500, we actually have a choice. We have a copper column and we have a stainless steel column. This here is demonstrating the copper column. The copper column is slightly more expensive than the stainless steel. What are the benefits? Well, the first thing that we've got to say about the copper column is it does look rather nice. It's great on display. It's got a nice shiny finish to it. With it being copper, the theory is that you will actually get a very slightly better quality of alcohol. But inside the column, I'm going to talk to you shortly about it, we do have copper inside, so those benefits are slightly enhanced by having the copper column. It is not massive. Now I have to say, in my own personal opinion, I can't tell the difference on the quality of the alcohol that comes through the copper column and the stainless steel column. I find there's very, very little. There is a difference, but it's so minimal that my personal taste buds won't pick that up. But if you do want the best, and there are a lot of you out there who do, if you want the best, go for the copper, and if you want to put it on display, go for the copper. There are two advantages to having the copper. I'm going to show you here the stainless one. Absolutely the same as the copper. They're both identical. It's just the outside finish which is different on the two machines. So I'm going to move the stainless steel one out the way now, and we're going to concentrate on the copper, remembering everything is identical on both machines. So the copper column, most of the machines which are coming out of the factory, again as of August, will have packed inside the column the stainless steel saddles and the copper saddles. They'll already be packed, but for those of you who haven't got them packed, we're looking at the copper saddles here, and we're looking at the stainless steel ones here. Now on the machine, at the top of the column will be the copper saddles, and then the bulk of them will be the stainless steel. Now they used to be inside the column ceramic saddles, but the good people of Still Spirits have now upgraded those, and we now have the stainless steel ones. So inside the column at the very top we'll have the copper, followed by the stainless all the way down. And if we look at the working parts of the actual T500, we have at the top a pipe that connects the two columns together. We also have three pipes that are working for us. The first pipe is this one here, which comes off this T-shaped block, and this is the pipe that will go to our water. So that is the water coming in to the column. So when the alcohol starts to drip, it will drip through this particular lead. And finally, the third one we have is the outlet water. So this one will connect and will go to our waste. Obviously, if you want to recycle your water, put it into a bucket of some sort. Now with a lot of the tubing, it actually gives you a running version of what they do on them. So it's very difficult to get it all mixed up. So we've got the three pipes going actually onto the machine. We've also, on this block here, we have our thermometer, which goes into the block. Now in the earlier versions we did have problems with the thermometer. Imagine that we've got an L shape, and I will just cover this because I think it's worthwhile, as there might be a few of you who've got the old machines. There is an L-shaped channel that goes through this block, which is designed for the water obviously to go through, and this will sit on top of the water flow. A lot of you have been pushing that right down into the block and interrupting the water flow, and this then gives you some very inconsistent readings on your temperature and also causes back surging. So if you've got one of the ones, the older, slightly older model, where this can actually get pushed into your water flow, you need to sit that above your water flow. These later models, obviously it's not such a problem because the way they've designed the block allows for this. Your temperature is obviously in both centigrade and Fahrenheit, and there is a control on the back that allows you to switch between one and the other. I like to use C because obviously at 100 C you know you've got boiling, at 78 to 82 C you know you've got the alcohol vapours coming off, etc., which we'll run through in a minute. Right, so we just need to look at how we're going to get the water to our T500. With several options, the Still Spirits people have given us several fittings. So our water is going to go in through this outlet here, and the first option that we have is we have this water flow controller, which it goes on the end here into position, and on the end of the water flow controller is a screw thread. This is designed to go onto a tap that has an aerator on the end. Quite a lot of the kitchen taps, especially the more modern ones, aerate the water when it comes through into your sink. And if you unscrew that aerator part, this will actually screw on to the tap itself directly, and you can then control the water using this water flow controller. The other option is they give you a 20mm adapter. Now the 20mm adapter will fit onto a washing machine fitting or an outside tap fitting. So again, if you've got one of those, you can use the 20mm adapter. Now failing that, we have to dispense with the water flow controller, and we have to use one of these push-on tap fittings, which is a bit primitive, but it will actually do the job. Now, what we're looking for, we're looking to be able to control the water pressure inside our machine, because we want to keep the temperature at a constant temperature. And to do that, let's assume this is now fitted to our tap. We're going to switch the tap on to full. It needs to be on full power. And then we're going to restrict the full power by using this needle valve on the top. And this will then allow us to adjust our temperature in this block here on the outlet. So we're looking to adjust the temperature on the outlet block by the amount of water that runs through the column. Obviously, the more water that we get going through the column, the lower the temperature is going to be. And similarly, the less water we get going through the column, the more the temperature will be. Now we run into slight problems because if you're in the average household, you're going to get fluctuating water pressures. So it's quite important, if you can, to run your T500 when you haven't got other people in the house. This will allow you to keep your temperature once set at a constant temperature. So if people are using the toilet, if they're using washing machines, if they're having a bath, all these things affect your water pressure. So ideally, try and dispense with that. We do, and I will come on to, a water flow controller unit that we actually sell, which will allow you to adjust that. But at the moment, all we're using is the water flow. This is the stainless steel water flow, and this is going to control our temperature, our pressure coming from the tap. Right, so what will normally happen is we would normally get our machine, we would fill it with our 25 litre wash, we're going to switch the machine on, we're going to add to the base of the machine some ceramic saddles. The reason behind the ceramic saddles is we are trying to stop any surge boiling. Now, surge boiling, imagine you put a pan of milk on your stove. Sometimes you'll find that there'll be a build-up of bubbles on the base, and those bubbles suddenly lock together and cause like a small explosion, and the milk goes pshoo. The same can happen with your boiler. Now, those ceramic saddles will just prevent that from happening. The other thing that we're going to add is the distiller's conditioning. A couple of capfuls of that in the machine again will help to prevent foaming. So both those two things really quite important. We're going to put those into the machine. We're now going to put the lid on, and really important, I've done it myself a few times over the years, I've forgotten to strap the lid on. It's really important to strap this lid down using the 4 spring clips, which will force it into place. Strap the lid down. There's a nice seal inside the lid, a nice rubber seal that goes inside that gives it a really nice tight fit. Obviously, the reason for that is we don't want any vapors escaping through the lid and the actual body of the machine. So we're going to strap the lid down and we're going to switch the machine on. 30, 35, 40 minutes, something like that, we'll find that the temperature on here is really getting quite hot. I mean, so hot that you probably won't be able to touch it, but you'll get the feel that this is really warm. Now, when we get to that point, we then need to start thinking about getting our water flowing through the machine. So we're going to switch the tap on to full using our water flow controller. Taps on full, and then we're going to adjust the needle valve, and we're looking to collect through the outlet tube about 400 mils of water per minute. If we can set the needle valve to allow that to happen, we're not going to be far away when it comes to setting our temperature. So we'll get the water flowing, and then probably the next 20 minutes we're going to get up to temperature and we're going to see alcohol starting to drip from the column. We'll see on our temperature probe that the temperature starts to rise. It will go up to around 45, 50. Once it gets around the 50, we then need to be thinking about adjusting it on our needle valve, because what we're looking for on our outlet temperature is between 50 and 65. If we're looking for maximum quality alcohol, then we're looking to get that temperature set to 50. If we're looking for maximum speed with okay quality, we're looking at getting that set at 65. At 65, we'll get a good flow rate, but the quality will not be as good as at 50. Now, I'm not going to give you a guideline on that. That's up to you to decide what you're looking for, quality or quality and speed, and you need to get it right. Now, If you get your temperature set at around 50, don't panic if it's changing by 1 or 2. It's not the end of the world, not a problem. Get it set at between sort of 50 and 52 if you're looking for maximum quality. If you're looking for maximum speed, anything around the 65 plus or minus 2, you're not going to have a problem on that, and you'll find it difficult to really keep it absolutely constant at that level. But we're going to do that. If the temperature starts to rise, then obviously we need to open the needle valve so that we've got more water flowing through. If we find the temperature is dropping, then again we need to close the needle valve so that we've got less water coming through. And it's probably going to take 3 or 4 minutes to get your temperature absolutely spot on. But once you've got it spot on, you're then going to get alcohol dripping through here. This is quite important. We need to collect the alcohol. And I would always recommend that you collect it in glass. So a glass demijohn is absolutely perfect for this. We can put this in the top of the glass demijohn and we can then collect the alcohol. It's going to drip, drip, drip. And we're going to talk about what we're going to throw away in a minute. But the thing that's really important as well with this is, depending on the size of your container, you must always have it dripping above the liquid level that is in the container. If this gets submerged into the liquid, then your alcohol will stop dripping and you'll end up with back surging, and that is a worry. So make sure the alcohol always drips into your container. Okay, right, we have to decide, what are we going to throw away? Why do we want to throw anything away? There are many reports out there. Whichever book you read on alcohol distillation, whichever website you get onto, people will talk about methanol and throwing away your first 50, 100 ml of produce that is coming through the machine. Well, here's a fact for you now that I'm going to tell you, and this is backed up with scientific research. So these people who go on about it unfortunately won't have the science knowledge that we fortunately have had shared with us. If you use the triple distilled yeast, or we call it pure yeast, with carbon, and you use ordinary granulated sugar or brewing sugar, that's the triple pure yeast with ordinary sugar, you do not need to dispense with any of the alcohol which comes through that tube there. Yes, that's right, you do not need to. If you want to, that is your choice, but from a safety point of view, you don't need to worry. If you're using that particular yeast and you are going to make a bottle of whiskey for the sake of argument, then our bottle of whiskey will have 1/10 of the methanol that you will find in a bottle of commercial whiskey. That's using the pure yeast and granulated sugar. 1/10 of what you'll find in a bottle of commercial whiskey bought off the shelf in a supermarket. If you're going to use the classic yeast, the classic 6 or the classic 8, because especially the 8, where you're looking at actually getting a much bigger yield from that particular yeast, then I would recommend throwing the first 50 to 100 mils of alcohol away, because there will be some off flavors in that. It's not just about methanol, it's about off flavors as well. Get rid of that. Now, other people talk about the tails, which is at the end of the distillation process. Do we need to throw anything away there? No, we don't, not as long as we're using those 2 yeasts. If we use the pure yeast or the classic 8-6, you don't need to worry about throwing anything away at the very end. Now, we're going to switch them. Once the machine's actually running, we're looking at, let's just look at yield that we would expect to get. If we've used the pure yeast, we're going to have used 6 bags of ordinary granulated sugar or 7 bags of glucose. And we would expect our yield on this machine, that's the amount that we're going to collect, we would expect the yield to be about 3.5 litres, somewhere in that order. Now a lot of it will depend on how good your fermentation was in your wash. If you've had a magnificent fermentation, you've got down to 980 with your hydrometer, then your yield is going to be much more than if you've stopped the fermentation at 1000 and that's all you've actually achieved on your hydrometer. So the yield is very much down to how much alcohol you've made in the first place in your wash. What we need to think, therefore, is we're going to collect between 3 and 3.5 using the pure, and that alcohol that's going to come out is going to be between 92 and 94% ABV. That is incredibly strong. And we're going to talk shortly about filtration of that. But at this moment in time, I'm just concentrating on yield. Now with the Classic 8, you're going to use either 8 bags of sugar or 9 bags of glucose sugar, and there you're going to, again, in your wash, as long as you get down to 980, you're going to get around 18%. I should have said on the pure you'll actually get about 14%, provided you get down to 980. On this one you're going to get 18% alcohol, and we would expect to collect between 4 and 4.3 litres of alcohol, 92 to 94%. And with that we will know that we've got all our alcohol from the machine, because this is going to extract everything out of this wash that is in the fermenter. And when it's done its job, you won't get any dripping. So you don't need to worry about where have we got to the end. There's no alcohol coming through. So that's your clue that you've finished and you've collected everything that is there present. Just as a quickie, the pure yeast we would recommend for white spirit. So if you're making vodka, white rum or gin, we would recommend using the pure yeast. If you're using dark or making dark spirit, whiskey, brandy, dark rums, then use the Classic. Use the Classic 8. The reason for that is that the Classic 8 actually produces slightly more off flavours, obviously, than the pure yeast, but those off flavours seem to be beneficial to the taste on those particular spirits. So well worth thinking about. If you're doing liqueurs, don't worry, because the amount of sweetness that you're going to put in those, the benefit of taste will actually be lost because you've sweetened them. Right, we're sort of about finished with our actual distillation process on the T500. I would recommend that obviously we switch off either on the switch here or at the plug. We then empty it, release the lid, empty the alcohol that is in the container, and a lot of people ask me, what do we do in terms of cleaning? Well, I would recommend that we give the boiler, the inside of the boiler, a good wash. If necessary, use a little bit of soapy water, fairy liquid, something like that, just to give it a good clean. Every so often you might well find you've got stains in there, in which case if we make a solution of citric acid and put that inside the boiler and then just get it nice and warm, don't boil it, just get it warm, that will actually help to give it a real good clean on the stainless part. The column is slightly different. Now what I tend to do is once I've finished my fermentation, I'll just turn this upside down and I'll pour through here lots of water to give it a good flush out. Just put it in there, flush it out. Once I've flushed it out, then I'm good to go for my next time. Every 3 to 5 goes, what I'll do is I'll actually take out the ceramic saddles, sorry, the stainless steel saddles and the copper saddles. The old people who've got the old machine will still have the ceramic saddles. I'll take those out and I'll give them a real good clean. By a real good clean, what I'll do is I'll soak the copper ones in coca-cola. That tends to give them a bit of a clean, a bit like the old penny about the penny or the tuppence that you put in same principle. Soak them in Coca-Cola, and similarly with the stainless steel ones or the ceramic ones, you can soak those in Coca-Cola. If it's not doing the job and you find it's too ingrained, then again, a solution of citric acid will do the trick for you on that. Maintenance, as I say, is really quite important. The machine comes with a 12-month guarantee. We very, very rarely have problems. That would probably be the kiss of death, but we very, very rarely have problems with the actual T500. It's been well tried, well tested. It is the most commercial machine I have seen for home use. The T500 is a reflux still. This means we collect maximum strength alcohol with minimum taste. That's the whole objective of the reflux. Maximum strength, minimum taste. We don't want any flavours coming through. So we have the column that separates it. And one of the things with the column, which I think is quite important, is when we get up to temperature between 78 and 82, what will happen is the vapours will come off the liquid. So the liquid will be left, and the alcohol vapours will come off the liquid and go up into the column. Now the reason we've got those ceramic saddles and stainless steel and copper saddles in this particular column is that when the vapours go up, they hit the rough part of the stainless saddles, and the water element will cling to it and then drop back down. And it's only the alcohol vapours that go up. So having this column as big as we have, we've got more chances of the water collecting on those stainless steel saddles. So by the time the vapor gets to the top, it's so pure. It's like 92-94% alcohol. This is why we've got such strength in it. And for things like vodka, it's absolutely perfect for what we're wanting to achieve. Now, if we were wanting to take something like our wash, which was using grain or malt extract or something like that, and we're trying to make whiskey in the traditional way, then obviously the wash goes into our boiler and we boil up. If that goes through the column, we're going to use a lot of those flavours are going to get lost. So that is when we would not use a reflux still, but we'd use a pot still. Now the pot still is very much designed to retain a lot of those flavours. If we're looking at that, we would be looking at an alembic. I'm not going to go into great detail on this because we've got other videos on the alembic and have a look at those. But the alembic is this little thing. This will sit on top of our boiler with our column, and the alcohol will come through here at between 35 and 50, 55, something like that, strength. And here you will be collecting alcohol that is far more flavoured. So it retains the malty flavours, which makes it obviously whiskey to taste. I don't intend to go, as I say, into the alembic, so please look at the other videos, but I thought it was worth mentioning as we're talking about the T500. Just wanted to run through the water flow regulator. Now, the clever people at Still Spirits, oh, they are so clever, aren't they? The clever people at Still Spirits realised that there could be a potential problem with the T500. We're looking to control the water that runs through the column. And one of the problems we get is where people get fluctuating pressures. Somebody's going to the toilet, somebody's using the bath, somebody's using a washing machine, somebody's cleaning their car, whatever it might be. And you get fluctuating water pressures, which obviously then adjust and cause havoc with the temperature control that we've got. So they came up with this little idea, and I suppose in a way it's a bit like a toilet system. We've got here the water flow regulator, and here we have connected to the inlet this pipe here with a control on it on the top here. Very similar to the water flow controller that we have, which comes as standard with the machine, which is the small stainless steel bit. It's got a needle valve on the top, and here we have the water coming in from our tap. Now the water that's coming in, again, we have the various tap fittings that we're going to need. So we can use a 20mm adapter which will fit onto a washing machine fitting or an outside tap, or we've got the aerator versions, so again they'll screw onto your tap to be able to work directly from the tap and inject water directly to this. Water on full, and the water will come in here into the machine. It will fill up the chamber here, and then we'll start to run through our T500. And we can control it by using this needle valve on the top. So obviously up or down depending on whether we're wanting to change the temperature. If we find our temperature is too hot, we need to get more water running through. If we find it's too cold, we need to get less water coming through. Now I have to say, in my particular case, I'm very fortunate. I've got a separate utility room, and when I'm doing my brewing, nobody's allowed to go anywhere near. So this is actually not a major benefit to me, but for many it has proved to be an absolute lifesaver, because once you get the temperature set, you will actually have no fluctuation, plus or minus about 1%. You'll get no fluctuation throughout the whole running onto your T500, and that gives people a lot of peace of mind, because if they're not watching it 24/7, they can actually go off and do the odd little thing. We wouldn't recommend leaving it completely and going out and go and play football or something, but we would recommend that you keep your eye on it, but this will actually take a lot of that hassle away from you. They're retailing at around £60, but they are super little piece of kit, and again a real must for some people with this fluctuating temperature. We need to look at filtration. Why do we need to filter our alcohol? Well, the reason we want to filter our alcohol is because we will get a much better, cleaner, crisper taste from it. We use carbon to do the filtration with the alcohol that's coming through the air still, or the T500. We need to firstly make sure that the alcohol is diluted below 50%, because the carbons that we're using are not effective unless the alcohol strength is less than 50%. Now, as a general rule, I tend to dilute all my alcohol down to 40%, because that's the strength I'm going to use for my gins, my whiskies, my rums, my brandies. We dilute down to 40% therefore, and then we run it through our carbon filter. With two pieces of equipment that we can use. We've got the inline filter and we've got the EZ filter. I'm going to show you the EZ filter first. What we will do is we are going to collect in, or put in to this particular container, all our finished diluted alcohol. So 40% alcohol in here, it can be up to 50%, 40% alcohol in here, and we're going to store it in here. Now, on the base, we have a carbon cartridge, and I'm going to put the carbon cartridge, as you can see there's a hole in the base. Through here will go our EZ filter, the carbon cartridge, and we're going to tighten that up onto there with this nut that goes on the top. That's going to tighten up, and we've got in position on the carbon a washer either side. Now once we've tightened it up, that will then go into position here on top of our second container, and the second container, as you can see, it's got a lid on it there, and all we're going to do is we're just going to push that into position. So that's now locked in position. Our alcohol's in the top. As the alcohol drips through, it will go through our carbon cartridge into our collection chamber, and with a lid that goes on the top which can sit in place there. Dead simple, very easy to operate. Once the alcohol's come through, we'll then put it through. In my case, I'll put it through again. Now that carbon block will do about 20 litres of alcohol, so you can get a good run through it. Once you've used it, it's not worth using it again. And if that carbon block dries out, then again, no good. What we tend to do with the block to start with is to give it a really good soaking in hot water, about 10-15 minutes. Let it soak in hot water. That will get rid of all the air pores which are in it and get it ready for action, so that when we pour the alcohol through it, it will come through and it will clean the alcohol. Now, we also have the inline filter, and the inline filter, again, is very similar to that. The carbon block is the same size, but this connects between two buckets. So if you've already got two buckets and you've got something and they are spare, provided one of them has got a tap on it, preferably the top one, you can then connect it with a piece of tubing to the inline filter, and the inline filter will then sit in the top of your bottom bucket. So imagine we've got a bucket sitting on this part here with a tap. We've now got a piece of siphon tubing coming all the way down. We've got that at the end of the siphon tubing, and that will go into the lid of our bucket on the floor. It's going to be gravity fed. It's not quite as simple as this particular one. It will do the job, and it's a little bit cheaper, that option. So you've the two options, the inline or the EZ filter. With the inline, you need a tap, a piece of siphon and two buckets that we do as a package to go with them. With this, it's all complete. The carbon blocks, they can be bought separately, and you will need to obviously keep using those as refills. Okay. They're about £5, so they're not dead expensive, and they will do, as I say, up to about 20 litres of alcohol. So those are your options on filtration. You'll find that if you run it through the carbon filter, it really will improve the alcohol quality. The taste will be great. It is not essential from a safety point of view, but from a taste point of view, we strongly recommend it. So those are your options. Just while we're on dilution of alcohol for the EZ and inline filter, to get the strength down to below the 50%, a lot of people ask me, what sort of water can you use? You can use any water you want. Some people think bottled water is better. Some people like to run it through a Brita type water filter first before they add it. Some people go out and get spring water. Some people will actually use the machine for making distilled water as well. So there are options, and again, entirely up to you. I'm not going to give guidelines on that. I tend to, as a general rule, just use ordinary tap water. My water is not heavily chlorine-y, so if you do have a chlorine problem, then again, it might be a consideration for you. Okay. Filtration, final thing. The people at Harris Filters have spent quite a bit of time checking product that they've run through their little Vimbrite filter. It's a very simple filter, the Vimbrite filter. It does give a final polish on that alcohol, and it does take out a few of the impurities that you will be able to taste. So if you find that you're wanting to give it that final treatment, then the Vimbrite filter, again, it's not an expensive piece of kit, and it comes with several different pad options that you can use, and again, it will help to clean the alcohol and give you a better taste. Not essential, you don't have to do it, but again, it's for you to decide whether you think that makes a difference.